Let's start with the Nokar mantra.
Nokar?
Yeah.
Okay.
Come on in. Let's start with the Nokar mantra. Namo Arihantanam Siddhanam Ayan. So I see. Hey, come on in.
Hey, Timid.
How you doing?
Pretty good.
You coming in? Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
Hey, how you doing? Great to see you.
Sorry.
Been too long? Oh, no problem. Can you close the door?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
No, I think we can throw it. Welcome to everybody. I'm happy to see some new faces. So we're here to help each other spiritually as well as professionally. Hey, come on in. I'm happy to see all these new faces. So if you want to go around the room and introduce ourselves and tell us where you work, because we're here to help each other spiritually as well as professionally. And if you see somebody in your field or that is working in a place that you're interested in, feel free to talk to them after class, okay? And then, because we're here for that too. So if we want to start here. There has been some misunderstanding about that previously, that we were trying to exclude people, and that was never the case. The case was there was always a mom's class, and I didn't want to step on anybody's toes and attract students from another class. And so we just had, a dad's class, that way I wouldn't offend anybody in mom's class. But then some people got it twisted and thought that we were excluding people. We never wanted to exclude people. My name is Stimer Cheda. I'm an attorney at Selman, Munson & Lerner. I do intellectual property law, so that's patents, copyrights, and trademarks. I also do a lot of corporate law if you need to set up a business or anything like that, and I'm the guy to talk to. Thank you so much for coming today. I'm really excited to start. I'm sorry about the messed up schedule at the beginning. One of the most important... There's nobody online, but they might come. Usually some of the people that are online are here today. One of the most important tools in a politician's toolbox is the message of, it's not your fault. They say that the reason you have a poor quality of life is because of immigrants, poor people, minority groups, other countries sometimes, or the media. Anything other than yourself. Not only politicians use that message, hey, come on in, but marketers use that message as well. It's not your fault if you're unhealthy. Who has the time to eat right and exercise? Buy these diet pills for me, right? It's not your fault you can't find a date. You're a busy person. Nobody has time to do that. Download this app that reduces people to pixels. Hey, come on in. Great to see you. Really, not just politicians and marketers, really anyone interested in the art of persuasion understands this tool and makes it a core part of their toolbox. And it's one very sought after skill. That is, how to get somebody to do something that they don't want to do. If you can do that, you are marketable anywhere in any industry. So, how does it work? Why is it persuasive and effective? Well, a couple of reasons. We're talking about this idea of it's not your fault. First, it means if somebody tells you it's not your fault, it means you don't have to examine your life. And examining your life is very hard. It means you don't have to come to terms with the responsibility of your role making the decisions that led to where you are now. And that's even harder than examining your life. It builds empathy and trust in another person. If someone tells you, hey, it's not your fault, you can build a kind of trust and a rapport with that person because you won't feel like they'll judge you. It encourages openness. That is, you're more likely to share your thoughts and feelings if somebody tells you it's not your fault, because you're comfortable in exposing your flaws to somebody without being judged for them. It creates a kind of a safe space for communication between two people. It preserves your ego. If somebody tells you that it's not your fault, you don't have to take that hit to the ego. It can help preserve your self-esteem. It reduces your defensiveness. A lot of times when we talk to strangers, all these marketers and politicians, they're all strangers. And so there is that initial barrier of, that everybody has their shields up. What is this person trying to do? If somebody tells you it's not your fault, that helps those shields come down. And it encourages communication between people. And being told it's not your fault is easy and it's seductive, right? And it's seductive because it's easy. It makes the world seem easy. And hey, come on in.
Anybody sees that?
Red color no batua.
You see anything there?
So we like the world to be easy. We like for it to seem easy. The world is extremely complex. And you can tell it's, people like to think that the president is in charge of the country. He has all the powers to do this and that. It's not that easy. He's not in charge of everything, right? But they'll take that responsibility because it makes it easy. Vote for me, I will make everything better because I have the power to do so because I'm president. But you don't know, who knows about what the Constitution says and who knows about separation of powers, and it's all very complicated, and we don't want the world to be complicated. So when someone tells you it's those people over there that are causing the problems in your life, it's easy to see. They came in, they're willing to work for lower wages, they're taking my jobs, they're the reason I don't have a job. Very easy, very seductive. So a lot of people decry this victim mentality in the world that we have in, and this is one of the reasons we have it. That is, this is one of the reasons that everybody is a victim, because we all think it's not our fault. And if we're the victim, and if it's not our fault, then we avoid any kind of responsibility. So how do we stop it? We stop it by doing the opposite. What's the opposite? The opposite is self-ownership. Self-ownership refers to your ability to take control of your life, to make empowered decisions, and take responsibility for your personal growth and well-being. And so, what are some of the tools that we can use to resist this seduction that other people are trying to control us with? Hey, come on in. Hey, come on in. Hey, come in. Great to see you. Thanks for coming today. Today we're talking about how seductive it is when people tell you it's not your fault. This is the core tool in a politician's and marketer's toolbox. And it's very seductive when somebody tells you it's not your fault. So we went over how people try to get you to do what they want you to do instead of what you want to do. And now we're going to go over some ways to combat that. One is try to take more personal responsibility over your life. That is, remember that you have control over your thoughts, your actions, and your speech. And that you are accountable for the outcomes in your life. The next is self-empowerment. That is, believing you have agency. This is a big one for our kids, to teach our kids, because they don't have agency. But as they get older, they're in that position where they remember they don't have any agency and they just continue that. Whereas as they get older, they get more and more agency over their lives, and we need to give them that agency. Hey, come on in. Hi.
One more?
Yeah, of course.
Thank you.
Welcome. So, does anybody have an example of that, where their kids didn't realize that they had agency that they did have.
You're good. I don't understand. What do you mean by agency?
So agency means that you are in control of the things that you can do. And it sounds silly. You might think, hey, I'm always in control of the things I can do. But it's not silly.
No, right.
Some people don't have agency, like little kids. We're telling little kids what to do all the time, their whole life. And they remember that, and then when it's time for them to take control of their life, they don't. Because they're used to us doing stuff for them and telling them where to go and what to do and what to wear and how to act.
Dabir, this is a different example, not a kid one, but it's Sunday, it's football, right? A lot of us are watching.
Yeah.
So Deion Sanders, as many of you know, lost yesterday.
Right.
It was his first loss of the season.
To Oregon.
To Oregon, yeah. The biggest thing he said in his press conference is, I take ownership for the team.
Right.
It's my fault, starts at the top. And, that shifts the blame from the players to the coaches and stuff like that. So that's an example of what you're saying, trying to take ownership of, the loss. So you could apply that to the kids and other examples, but that's an example that I thought of.
Absolutely. Any other examples?
Yes. So yesterday my husband and I were discussing, basically my husband was telling my daughter to do her homework. And I'm like, is that the right approach? Shouldn't she take responsibility for managing her own time and doing her homework? So we were kind of debating. But then he was concerned, like, what if she doesn't do it? And he's like, I'm not prepared to let her fail.
Right.
So he was taking a lot of responsibility. I'm like, give that responsibility to her. But he's like, I'm not ready for her to fail. So then we are at a standstill. Like, should we tell her to do her homework or should we not?
Right. When is the right time to let our kids suffer the consequences of their own actions? It's a hard question and it's different. Come on in.
Called Failing Forward. And it was a talk about the importance of failure and how failure teaches us way more than success does. And it really kind of hits home to me because I feel as Indian parents, and you're also children once, right? It's in our mind that academic focus or making sure you're at the top of your game all the time. And I think that I don't think that helps our kids learn those lessons, So maybe yes, we want them to all have, good grades, but are we hurting them in constantly pushing them to do that if that's not part of their own goals? And that we really have to let them fail, because actually that probably teaches them more than always succeeding.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, it's like as soon as my son has decided he wants to make some decisions for himself, I'm like, okay, every decision you make has a consequence. As long as you're willing to face the consequence, it's okay. Try it out. If it doesn't work, do something different the next time. So, I mean, I wouldn't let my 8-year-old probably do that because I don't think she understands action equals consequence. But after 10, 11, when they understand the relationship, I think we have to let them fail sometimes.
So I talked to our pediatrician for my 9-year-old. Same issue, right? Like they don't understand how to manage their stuff. And she's also a Desi pediatrician. So she's like, this is a Desi culture. You see in the white or other races,
Yes.
they let their kids do what they want and they suffer the consequences. As a Desi parent, we always try to cocoon our kids and always worried oh, what if they fail or what if? You need to start giving him responsibility. Explain them, okay, this is what will happen if you don't. If you don't get ready on time for school, you are walking to school and I'm not coming to drop you off. Even after she said that, it's hard as a parent for us to implement, but in reality, that would help. So we started doing very small changes to his life, and I hope it works this school year. But yeah, it's just us as a culture. Also, we try to kind of protect our kids so much. And like you said, right, we are not letting them fail early on, and then when they get older and fail, it's very hard on them to know like how the failure looks and what to do.
In our culture, like we are so focused on the kids, we don't let them go. Even they want saying,
Right.
okay, I want to take care of myself. We say, so no. If you are front of us, we have to take care of you.
And now they feel like, oh, everything we are making a decision for them where their parents are not when they go to school. So I'm like, okay, you can make a decision, but these are your choices and this is what will happen if you don't do it. So
Now my problem is, I think one of you guys said is, make the decision, see the consequences. My spouse is, nah, I want 100. I want him to succeed. So now the child is torn. They're like, what should I do, daddy? Should I play with you or should I suffer the consequences? Who to suffer the consequences?
One of the things that'll help us is if we realize the entire life is a gradual process of letting go. Before the child is born, everything is taken care of. Its shelter is taken care of. Its food is taken care of. All the needs are taken care of. The minute the child is born, that's the first step in letting go. Right? Because now the food is external, now the shelter is external, right? As the child learns to walk, that's another process of letting go. As the child learns to talk, that's another process of letting go. And it is a kind of a ramp of always letting go. So it's never like, when is the right age? Every age is the right age to let go of something until they're self-sufficient. And then, of course, death is the final process of letting go, right? So the entire spectrum of life is one gigantic process of letting go. So that is something that should help us when we're conflicted about what is the right thing to do. We should have that end in mind about, well, the goal is to let go entirely. So other things we can do to combat this victim mentality and this seduction of people telling us that it's not our fault is to have self-awareness. That is, understand your strengths and weaknesses. That helps you make informed decisions. Another thing you can do is goal setting. We do that all the time in this class. Hey, come on in. Unfortunately, you guys are going to have to sit right next to me. So come on in, scoot up. Hey, come on in. Great to see you, man.
That's VIP.
Yeah. We do a lot of goal setting in this class, and if you set goals, that means somebody is not using you for their goals. You might not realize it, but a lot of people are using you for their goals all the time, unless you have a goal and you're striving towards it. Another way to combat this is to improve our decision-making process and emotional intelligence. That is, these are skills you can learn. It's not something that some people have them naturally, but if you don't, these are skills you can learn. Take care of yourself and own your narrative. That is, own the story of your life. One epiphany that I had that I talk about all the time is what most people call a life is just a series of events that happen to their body. That's what you call your life. And that's not a life at all. Okay? What a life is the expression of your soul and how that interacts with the world. It's not the events that happen to your body. Okay. So questions or comments about anything we talked about so far? So, if you think about your life, it is not just happening since you've been born, and it's not going to end when you die. We have a very narrow view of what life is. In fact, the reality is you're a soul, and you've been through many births and deaths in the past and many births and deaths in the future. You'll go through many. And if you widen that scope, you'll slowly, and if you think about your life like that, you'll slowly start to believe you're a soul. One of the craziest things that happened was in this class when I asked how many people believe they're soul. I'll ask it right now. Raise your hand if you believe you're a soul. Not many. Few. More than I thought. Once you believe you're a soul, you will make every decision differently. And one way to start believing your soul is to forget about what you call a life and worry about the journey that your soul has made. That's what I meant by that. The expression of your soul and how it interacts with everything. It's not your body. Identify with your soul instead.
So one question,
Yeah.
when you asked the question saying that whether you believe in soul or not. I mean, we,
Not in a soul, that you're a soul.
yeah, I'm a soul.
Yeah.
So, like we, like born and brought up in India, so we understood that concept and all those things. When the entire world doesn't believe like that way, so I mean, now I have questioned myself that when some people don't believe, some people believe. So, is it because we were being trained like that way? That's why I'm thinking like that way, or is it really something like that? You know?
No, it's because it's the truth.
And
The truth
on
doesn't matter whether the world believes it or not. Something that is true is still true. It doesn't matter whether X amount of people believe it or Y amount of people don't believe it. The truth will always be the truth, and you can find out for yourself.
One thing I noticed in our Indian culture, people know they are soul, but they don't believe they are soul.
Yeah, that's right. He understood he's a soul.
People believe they are soul, but they don't act at all. That's relevant to that. In fact,
Their actions are not as if they are soul.
Right.
Right.
Once you believe you're a soul, you'll start changing every decision you make, and you'll start rearranging your life to accommodate that belief. And you're right, most people don't believe they're a soul.
and another problem is we always think and see this is all in the past stories. Nothing, no example in front of us, like a real soul or something. So it's kind of
Right.
hard to digest.
Okay. Yeah.
So there is a movie called Ek Cheez Milegi Wonderful by the Pandit Maharaj. So that movie is actually based on that soul, like how to believe whether it is there or not. It's a very nice movie.
Which one?
Ek Cheez Milegi Wonderful. So it's our Pandit Maharaj movie.
So I have a comment about you mentioning that only we believe as a soul or not. I don't know how many of you have watched the kids movie that came out, Soul. That was also
Yes.
based off of that. So it's not just our culture that believes in it. There are other groups too, and it was pretty popular movie in kids a couple years ago. And I liked how that was solely based on how the soul's journey is from how it moves around. So it was pretty good movie for kids to understand that there's a soul.
Okay, so now's a good time to go off script and tell you that there are 3 pieces of evidence that the soul exists. Does anybody remember them? We have evidence that the soul exists and that you are one. Anybody remember them?
Is it like that there are people that can describe a whole nother life they once lived? And they're here on, like, people have a memory of having lived another location in this current life. Does that prove in some ways that you're not just this body, but you existed once before?
That's right. That's one. Anybody else remember?
From that movie, I know one thing.
Yeah.
That when you get born, right? Like you're crying. So that crying is an expression. How do you get that? So that something was related to that.
How does the crying prove that the soul exists?
I mean, there's something from the past which you know and still you are carrying forward. So it's
Oh, the reason you're crying. Okay. Is because of your previous memories. Very good. So one of the reasons is that the hard problem of consciousness exists. Okay? That is, how does matter give rise to consciousness? There is no current explanation. And as long as the problem is unsolved, well, we know the answer. The answer is your soul. That is, your soul gives rise to consciousness. And it's really quite interesting. It's an interesting question. If you were to somehow recreate a brain, would it have a mind? We don't know yet. That is, how does matter give rise to consciousness? It is because of the application of the soul. That's one piece of evidence that the soul exists. Another piece of evidence is that experienced meditators have confirmed the characteristics we learn of as a soul. That is, the characteristics of a soul are infinite happiness, infinite power, infinite knowledge, things like that. And experienced meditators have tapped into that. Okay, so that's another reason that we know that the soul exists. So great. So perfect time to reinforce those lessons. So, of course, we spent 30 minutes talking and we haven't talked about Jainism once, right? Well, what does anything that we talked about have to do with Jainism and applying it to your life? Well, Jainism is, if you're against this victim mentality, Jainism is the religion for you, because the concept of karma is the ultimate in personal responsibility and self-ownership. That is, everything that you experience in your life is your fault. It's not somebody else's fault. It's not that person over there's fault. It's not rich people's fault. It's not poor people's fault. The family that you're born in is your fault. The outcomes that you experience are your fault. And they're all related to things you have previously done. And you can change your life, change your future by changing your actions now. And if you believe that, it encourages you to take self-responsibility for your life and your choices. How is karma responsible for the problems that you're going through right now?
Well, it creates the conditions for whatever is going to happen. So whatever you did in your past life creates the conditions for whatever outcome is going to happen right now. Now, how you react to those conditions will create your future conditions. So you're responsible for everything.
But what about your life?
You are responsible for your life.
No, your life.
What do you mean, my personal? My personal life.
Yeah.
So whatever I have done in my past life is...
No, not whatever. What is something you're experiencing now that has been influenced by your karma?
Well, the fact that I'm in this class it gives me a chance for reflection, and hopefully gives me a chance to change my life. And I think it has a little bit, for sure. And hopefully that's creating a better set of conditions for what can happen.
It's all very abstract. And it would be better if you could point to a particular example of something that you've done and have it have a particular outcome be associated with that action. And it's very hard to do, but you can do it. We know that all of our actions don't lead to consequences in future lives. Some of our actions lead to consequences in this life. So I'll tell you something that happened to me. I wanted to prove it to myself. And so I did. I had an epiphany. I stole something, and then something got stolen from me later. Now, you might say, well, that was a coincidence or whatever. You steal something and something could steal from you. No, I had a definite feeling that the events were related. And you can do this too. It just takes a little bit of effort on your part. Just like there's evidence that the soul exists, there's evidence that karma exists, and you can prove it to yourself. How you do it is you spend a little bit of time each day wondering about what happened to you during that day and try to associate it with previous actions that you might have committed. And if it's something totally random that happened to you and you can associate it with a particular action that you did earlier in your life, you will start to believe. And it's not easy. I can just give you one or two examples that happened to me in my life. So if you start now, you'll be lucky to get one. But boy, will your life change when you get it.
I don't agree with that. If I want to relate like that, like if you steal something and something stolen from you,
right?
I don't relate with that.
Okay.
But how I relate it, like in my life, in my regular life, what you are asking. Okay, so like material greediness or something. Okay, to get something and something. Luxurious car. To get luxurious car, I'm putting so much effort myself or something, and then I'm putting so much mistakes and I'm putting in trouble myself that way. So that is I can consider as a karma sequence,
right?
Whole karma sequence.
Right.
If I don't make it myself greediness about that thing, then I don't put myself in that trouble. Those kind of different troubles.
Right. There's lots of ways you can do it. There's lots of different types of karma. And if you know about karma and how it affects your life, and you examine your life, which is hard. Okay, it's easy for us to in here. We have no kids. You know, we're in these four walls. It's easy for us to say all these things. Once we go outside, you're going to be thinking about what's for lunch. What do I need to get my kids? I need to get them ready for school tomorrow. It's hard. Okay, I'm not saying it's hard. It's not hard. It's hard. It's hard to take time for yourself every day. But if you take time for yourself every day, you will prove to yourself you're a soul. You'll prove to yourself that karma exists, and you will start to be on the path to change your life.
So, me and my parents, my father were discussing the same thing when I was in India, and I was telling him about the same thing. Yeah, what you're saying is like observing yourself, and in the near future, we were going a little bit longer, like 30, 40 years span, right? So I was observing, like I was telling him, like I was observing my uncle's life, right? How he separated from his parents, how he treated his parents and all. And now how he is being treated by his kids, right? Then I was looking at another uncle who used to take care of his parents and all. And now how his kids are taking care of his parents. So I'm like, this is a pretty clear picture of karma working with the interest and
That's great. It's a little bit easier to see it in other people, but it's a little bit harder to get that feeling inside of yourself. So there's pros and cons.
There are some contradictions as well. Like it's not always,
Hey, come in.
someone took care of their parents, but their kids.
Yeah. Oh, you gotta sit here, man. You gotta sit here. We'll take the door here.
how they treat also. Even if they are aware how they are treating, that's also matter. It's how the parents are suffering, that also matters. And there are kids which are aware, but they still take care of their parents. They still like talk to them, treat them well and all. So, those are many parameters. I'm not looking at just staying away. I'm just looking at how the parents are overall happy with their kid.
And nice treatments and all, the person will not realize now, later, but he would realize someday. So that is the one good thing about good karmas. People realize at least later.
It's a lot harder with good, but if you certainly can have yourself open, because a lot of times we feel like good are good things that happen are the result of our effort instead of the result of our karma. Another concept of Jainism that will help you avoid this victim mentality is detachment. If you can practice detachment, you won't let people trick you into doing what they want to do. And of course, we believe that Arihants and Siddhas have no attachment or hatred, and they cannot give anything to anybody. They cannot give you the kind of effort that you need to be responsible for your own actions. Only you can be responsible for your own actions. Another concept in Jainism is self-reliance or self-effort, or purusha, I think it's called, right? Is that you emphasize self-discovery and self-realization. And believe it or not, another concept of Jainism that helps us combat this is ahimsa. That is, if you encourage individuals to take responsibility for the himsa that happens in their life and avoid harming themselves and others, then that will help you take control of your life. So if you practice ahimsa, you're practicing taking control of your life. For example, if you avoid high traffic areas, if you avoid killing insects, if you avoid doing that, you start to realize that you have agency, okay? And that might not be a problem for all of us, but for some of us, we don't realize we're still stuck in that, not a child mode, but we're still stuck in a mode where we feel like we don't have agency over our lives. Jainism, of course, places a strong emphasis on self-discipline and self-reflection. And so those are all concepts that help us avoid the "it's not your fault" message. Questions or comments about any of that?
I have a comment on the karma theory. So again, I believe in karma, but like realistically, we don't know it exists. So I started believing a couple of years back is fake it till it make it. So I started believing in it is my bad karma is happening. So one thing I'm a big proponent of, I stopped lying, right? For no reason. Like, I stopped lying. If somebody calls me, what you doing?
Yeah.
doing closing big deals for no reason. It's not going to benefit anybody. Still, I was lying.
Right.
And I stopped lying, and I made my life so much easy. The quality of life for myself.
Right.
So, and I don't know if it has something to do with karma, but I started believing that if I stop lying, that is not adding bad karma to myself.
Right. Right.
Which is not benefiting anybody, but actually harming me. Mm-hmm. But I don't know, again, I still struggle sometimes, doing wrong things, still believing that I am a soul and karma is going to come and bite me. Still, I don't know if it's a discipline or what. It just, I do wrong things that knowingly I do it, knowing that I'm going to build karma into it. Mm-hmm. But, I consciously, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
That is the problem. Unconsciously you do it, you don't know, you can blame it to somebody else. But knowingly you do it, you have nobody to blame.
Have you ever been in a situation, you're eating something unhealthy, and you're like, I know this is bad for me.
Exactly.
And then you're like, why am I doing this? This is bad for me. I shouldn't be doing this. And it's like, there's no connection between what you're thinking and what you're doing.
And this happened the next day after Panjoshan. Somebody offered me samosa. And I know. And Krish talked to me about Das Lakshan 10 days. I'm like, oh my God. And I couldn't stop. And like knowing I should not be doing this.
Right, yeah.
In 8 days I did not do it. Mm-hmm. I did fast, I did ekasana, vyasana, whatever. The next day, boom, I'm back to normal.
Yeah. We have to build safeguards in our life to stop that from happening, to make us stop and take pause. And at first it starts out as signs, like a physical sign on the refrigerator that will help us. It's automatic. Our hand goes to the fridge, open it. We don't even think about doing that.
Right.
But then the sign makes us stop and think, and then we're like try to let go, right? And so it starts out physically, and then it's just a physical manifestation of mindfulness, right? And then once you're in a mindful state, then then the connection is there, like it's kind of like a circuit breaker that stops your body from doing things that it's used to doing, even while your mind is telling you something else.
I was just going to comment that, what example you gave. We see that in medicine all the time, and Neil and I can, I'm sure, relate to what we see in our patients. We have these new devices available called sensors, glucose sensors, and previously didn't have that. And we use these sensors in patients that are at risk for diabetes but don't necessarily have it yet. And what feedback it gives them, it's like when you're saying the example of the cake, right? You're eating it now, okay, down the line it's going to hurt you, but you're not seeing it happen as you're doing it, so that you don't make that connection. Similar to karma, right?
Right.
Shouldn't do this, but you're like, I'll deal with it when it happens later.
Exactly.
Right? And I mean, what we've seen in patients is when you have a sensor, you're getting instant information. As you're eating that cake, you're seeing, my blood sugar numbers are going up. Mm-hmm. And so that kind of is a reminder to you, like, maybe I shouldn't eat this. So in the same way, I think with mindfulness, that's like our sensor. It reminds us, like, maybe I shouldn't.
We need a karma meter. Right?
I know.
The problems is that it's invisible. We have to make it visible.
One of the things that for me, like what I have experienced whenever I think that I should not eat. So let's say if I think that I won't eat more than 2 times today, if I just think like that, it's very hard to do that. But the trick that has worked for me is that if I take the pach count, like let's say if I just do Vaishnav, that I'm only gonna eat 2 times, it's very easy to implement. Then I don't eat.
Yeah.
Because then I instantly think that if I eat the 3rd time, it will attach the bacteria. So because I'm breaking that vow, right? So without taking a vow, it is very hard just to do self-control. So taking a vow is very important, I think, if you have to have that kind of self-control.
I think it comes to like control and discipline also, right? Like when you're doing diet and you're like, okay, I'm dieting. But if you have like a journal or app where you're writing it down and okay, my calorie goal is say 1200. And if I'm getting like close to that and I really want to eat ice cream at night, and if I see it like, yeah, it's coming close to it, I'm like, okay, you know what? I really don't need it. I'll skip it. So anything like if you're more disciplined, you have more control. If you write it down somewhere or you have a rule like, okay, every Friday I won't do this. It's just small controls or discipline in your life also help you.
Like they say that you make a budget weekly and weekly, same way, start journaling, you will know your daily activities and you will know what you are doing, achieve them.
It's kind of hard to stop completely, right? We are not like that. So I guess taking a baby steps, like, okay, one day I won't do this, or this day I won't do it, or only certain days, so many times in the month I'll go out, or just small things like that.
I'm glad that,
Sorry,
No problem.
Wanted to just make a comment about the concept of detachment. We are attached to our families. We're attached to the temple. We're attached to our jobs. All of the culture ingrained forces us to be attached to these things. How do you practically,
Detach.
have that kind of way of life, the detached way of life? I know in medicine, Sonali mentioned, when we see patients, they actually teach us to see patients with a detached point of view. Don't have emotionality when you see somebody so that you can step back and look at the picture objectively. How do you practically do that in real life and personal life? So just wanted to ask, what are some good examples or good ways to do this?
How can we help Neil?
Last year we had a whole session on this detached.
Sure, it's in the book too, but he doesn't want to look in the book. He wants us to help him.
You are told whatever you are doing it for yourself, and everyone is their own soul. Whatever they are doing is for their own soul, even if they are kids. Something like that. You know how much attention it takes.
I think the question is like how we can help everybody here. So nobody has an answer. I don't think that's only his.
No, but again,
There are answers. I just want to know if you guys know them.
So again, that's a generalized question, but the way I used to tell myself, and I still tell myself affirmation, I'm not money motivated, right? Because when I came to US, any deal, any client, whatever, for money, $1 more, I would do it. Couple of years back, I started telling myself affirmation, I'm not money motivated. Then I did a small radio talk show, talked about it, talked to a bunch of friends, talked to clients that I'm not money motivated. I'll help you. I don't want anything in return. So that helped me detach myself from the money aspect of it. That was my problem. Is I wouldn't talk to you if there's no money involved. You know what? I'm not going to waste my time. But now, that is how I started detaching myself. I tell every day, every morning I tell myself, today, I'm not money motivated. It's really
Is it because now you have enough money, that's why you're not money? That detachment doesn't come
That's
when
very
you don't have money. When you have enough money, then you think about detaching it from it, right?
Actually, it's I believed it other way around. The more I got, the more I wanted. And the more I got, the more I wanted.
So at one point of time, that greed becomes saturated and then you will detach yourself.
For me, that didn't happen.
Yeah.
Just became more and more greedy.
Correct. But everyone,
Yeah.
I have seen many people in life, they become spiritual, etc., 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 only after a certain point in their life.
Yes.
When they are struggling to make money or to make something in their life, they'll not think about his ideology.
I agree.
Only they will talk about ideology, idealistic approach when they are done with everything in their life.
Yeah. And I think that applies to everyone.
Yeah, that applies
To everyone that yes, and that's why if you know that when people in 30s they say, oh, you have to work right, and when it is 40s, they say that okay, but suddenly I haven't changed now because you settled down by 40, 42.
Correct.
So that's when people start changing.
Just because everybody does it doesn't mean it's right. There are poor people that are happy, and they're happier than you will ever be. There are poor people and people that don't have as much as you do, that are much happier with their circumstances. It doesn't have to be that way. And Neil, the answer to your question is there are many, many ways to practice detachment in your life. And I'll tell you one way, because you raised your hand and you said you believed you're a soul. So one way to do that is to remember, since you believe you're a soul, this life is a very brief opportunity for you to do a tremendous amount of nirdra. You can't do nirdra when you're in animal form. You can't even do that much nirdra when you're a heavenly or hellish being, even though you see they have all these powers. They don't have the ability to take vows, so they don't have the ability to do as much nirdra as you can right now in whatever time you have left. So since you believe you're a soul, then you believe that this is a tremendous opportunity for you to do nirdra. And then all the other things that you're talking about, the volume is turned down on them. When you and your wife get in an argument, the volume's turned down on that because you see the big picture. When your kid's having trouble at school, the volume's turned down on that because you see the big picture. Now, what you were describing is really advanced detachment. I believe that you are not attached to material things. That's what I would recommend to everybody is to start with, is to reduce your attachment to spiritual things. But I know he's asking a question about advanced detachment. That is your family, this Jain Center, your friends. And you realize that all that doesn't matter in comparison for this brief opportunity that you have. And why not take advantage of it? Because your life isn't this life. It's not this body that you're experiencing. It's the innumerable lives that you've already lived. And you didn't take advantage of this moment. It's the innumerable lives you're going to live. And you're not going to take advantage of this moment. And once you realize that, that will help you detach from the things that are hardest to detach from. And this class has never been about telling you what's easy. This class is only about telling you the truth. And the truth is that you are enslaved. You're enslaved by your family, you're enslaved by your friends, you're enslaved by this Jain Center, and you have to break free of that. And it's hard. And I'm not saying I'm better than you, because I'm sitting here right now. The only thing I can do is to show you that there is such a thing as a path. And the only thing we can do is to help each other walk along that path. But it's you that must take each step. I cannot take the step for you. And we cannot take the steps for each other. We can only pick each other up when we're down, and we can only help each other back on the path when we straighten the path. I'm glad that you brought up You Stopped Lying. This is your yearly reminder that if you had worked on your anger the last year that I told you, you would have no anger in your life right now. It will take you less than a year to get rid of all the anger in your life. The 4 enemies we're working on are anger, ego, deceit, and greed. The easiest one to get rid of, they're in that order for a reason. The easiest one to get rid of is anger. If you haven't gotten rid of your anger yet, I told you last year, I'm telling you this year. You can get rid of it in 1 year. And again, I open my challenge up to anybody is to give me any scenario where anger is not directed at the self. That is, what are you hiding back there? I can't see. All anger is directed at the self. Okay? Can anybody give me any scenario where they got angry and it wasn't directed at yourself? Open challenge. Nobody has defeated me yet.
Yeah, anger affects only yourself.
It's all directed at yourself. No, of course it affects only yourself. But it's when you get angry at yourself.
Oh, wow.
11:30. Yep.
Because you're getting angry at someone. You're angry at them because they didn't meet your expectations.
That's right. Because anger is the mismatch between reality and expectations. And reality is never going to change. And so whenever you get angry, you're always getting angry at yourself. And that is if once you come to realize that, you'll start to eliminate anger from your life. Let's say you don't even care. Let's say you don't believe you're a soul. You don't believe in Jainism. You're here because your kids are out there and you're bored and you got nothing to do. Well, you certainly understand that getting angry reduces the quality of your life. I'm telling you, even if you don't believe in an afterlife or anything, I'm telling you, you can increase the quality of your lives by eliminating the anger from your life. I've seen people do it. Okay, this is not something that is not achievable. You can do it by this time next year. I'm going to give you a reminder next year that you should have done it by now. Yeah.
I'm new here. Can you give me some strategies?
Strategies on reducing anger. Can anybody help her out?
I take a deep breath when I'm like about to explode. Give myself 2 seconds.
And then explode.
Deep breath and start counting reverse. 10, 9, so on. I got it.
But that is momentarily when you control. What happens to all the thoughts which you build up during that time?
Can you give us an example so we can give you some concrete steps to take? When was the last time you got angry?
This always comes down to my kids.
Right, it always comes. Yeah, I know. Because you suffer the consequences of their actions. If they make a mess, you have to clean it up. Not them have to. It would be a lot less, you get a lot less angry if they cleaned up their messes. But tell me what happened.
Okay, so very realistic. My kids know that they have to brush every night. So I just want them to do it. Like, why should I have to tell them to brush their teeth? They already know that.
Right.
So then when they don't do it, I get angry.
Right.
Or and then even if my husband tells them to brush their teeth, I get mad at him. Like, why did you tell them?
Right.
Like we shouldn't have to tell them.
But you knew they were going to do it, though.
Brush or not brush?
Yeah, you knew they weren't going to brush their teeth.
If you don't.
We didn't wait until they went to sleep. Like, we don't know whether they were going to brush or not, right?
Right.
But also.
But you knew there was a possibility.
It was a possibility. Well, I don't know. We never let it get that far that they don't brush.
Yeah.
So we never let them fail. See, this is what it always comes down to. We don't wait for them to fall asleep and see that, oh, they didn't brush.
Right.
We never let it get that far. And I think that's where me and my husband struggle. Like, I want them to fail to figure out what's good. What happened, they failed, and the consequence of failing. But I think the anger was more towards my husband. He's like, he told them to brush. And I said, don't tell them to brush.
The anger was directed at yourself.
Okay.
Because you knew it was a possibility that they wouldn't brush. And you got angry. You got angry at yourself for not realizing it was a possibility. And you directed that anger. You used, I don't know what you did, whatever. You might have raised your voice or something like that. But that anger, you were mad at yourself because you forgot that there was a possibility that they didn't brush. And you could have dealt with the situation without being angry. And it helps to reduce your anger when you realize that the anger is directed at yourself. You look like you don't believe me. So...
Okay, because the expectations were set. Like, my kids know that they have to brush.
But you knew that there was a reality that they wouldn't do it, even though they knew they had to. But you knew that there was a reality that there was a world in which they did not brush. You just forgot about it.
Okay.
And then you got angry at yourself for forgetting about it. There was a world that exists where they knew they had to brush their teeth and they didn't brush their teeth anyway. That's why you got mad at yourself. Because you forgot that possibility existed. And then when you got mad, you're like, I forgot that this was an outcome that could have happened. And you got angry at yourself because you forgot that it was an outcome that could have happened. And then when reality hit you in the face and that outcome that you forgot about happened, you got angry at yourself. Other scenarios.
So actually, when you say that expectation, I know in this we have to really follow the Jainism, but every relationship we build is based on the expectation, right? If I don't have expectation with someone, then I don't know whether even I'll build a relationship. I mean,
it doesn't have to be.
I mean,
it doesn't have to be.
We live in this world.
Sure. Yeah, we all live in this world. But it will benefit you to reduce the covert contracts in your life. Does anybody remember what a covert contract is?
If this, then that, but you don't necessarily come out and say it, but it's in your mind.
That's right. It's a deal you make with somebody else, but you don't tell them about the deal. Okay? Let's say your wife comes home and sees you sitting on the couch, and you had a free 2 hours, and you were doing what you wanted for 2 hours. And she comes home and she sees that the dishes are still in the sink. And she says, "Oh, why didn't you do the dishes?" And you said, "I didn't know you want me to do the dishes." And she said, "If it was me, I would have done the dishes if I had a free 2 hours." So she set up a covert contract with you without telling you about it, and they got mad at you because you broke your end of the deal, right? It happens the other way around too. No, it happens with gentlemen, right? You take your date out for a nice dinner, and you want sex at the end of the date. Well, I took you out for a nice dinner. I paid you these compliments. I did this and this. I made a deal with you about what would happen later tonight, and I got mad at you because you broke your end of the deal that I didn't even tell you about the deal. Okay? Happens both ways, right? So you got to eliminate the covert contracts in your life where you feel like, oh, I'm in this life. I have expectations about everybody. It doesn't have to be that way. Questions or comments about anything we talked about today?
But what if it's not covert? Like everybody knows the expectations and then somebody breaks it. And that's why you got mad.
But you knew that just because somebody knows about a contract doesn't mean they have a possibility of breaking it, right? You know that people break promises, right? You just don't like it when they break promises. So because you forgot about that people can break promises, you got angry at yourself that this outcome occurred, and you got angry at yourself because they violated their deal with you, even if it was over.
Can I make one comment here? There is a stress management academy that has a section on anger management. It was actually put together by some of the Jain Center folks. For those of you who attended the diabetes seminar, we actually had a stress management component to it. And so highly encourage you guys to check it out. It's actually free. It's put together, it has a lot of great videos and techniques, because a lot of our anger is due to stress, right? And so if you could deal with the underlying stress, then sometimes the anger may dissipate as well. So that's just a nice tool, and it's actually...
Can you share links?
Yeah, sure. It's I've checked it out. It's quite good.
Thank you so much for your time today. I know all of our kids are coming out soon. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. We'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.